Hello and welcome to this edition of Inside the Americas. I'm Laura Sellier and here's a look at what's coming up in the programme. As Chile's first female leader is returned to power, we meet the young congresswoman who made her name leading the nation's biggest student demonstrations in decades. Plus, has Bill de Blasio been picking too many fights with too many people? We look at the challenges facing the New York City mayor 2 months after he took office. And the race against the clock in Brazil. We'll visit one of the country's most iconic football stadiums, which has been open to the public just in time for the World Cup. But first, 8 years after she came to power as Chile's first female president, Michelle Bachelet was sworn in again this week. She was returned to office after promising to tax business and end economic inequality. Senator Isabel Allende, the daughter of former President Salvador Allende, led her inauguration ceremony before the Congress in Valparaiso. Well, we stay in Chile now, where another woman has been making headlines in politics. At just 25 years old, Camila Vallejo has become the country's youngest congresswoman. She led mass student protests back in 2011 with a march against the cost of education. Laurie Fascio and Gideon Long have been meeting with her in Santiago.
It's International Women's Day, and Camila Vallejo has invited women from the district she represents to have breakfast. This young politician has just become a mum. So on the menu are the topics of childcare and gender equality.
In Chile, our culture is still very macho and misogynist. Recently, we've heard it in several public statements from different political parties, particularly from the more conservative parties and the Chilean right, which has strongly belittled women just for being women.
The 25-year-old congresswoman has incurred the wrath of Chile's conservatives. One member of a right-wing party recently published this tweet. Camila Vallejo gained notoriety during her fight for free education. In 2011, she became an icon for a whole indebted generation in a country with the world's most expensive education system. Her speeches draw big crowds, like here during the campaign for congressional elections last November.
Unfortunately, our mayor is authoritarian and he's not interested in public education. The only thing he is interested in is privatizing it. He has the power to do so. He closes schools in an arbitrary and unilateral way.
This pasionaria said she would never support Michelle Bachelet, but today she's part of her coalition. A change of course then, but the young communist revolutionary comes with a warning.
We have always said that we're here to carry out the government program. And if some sectors of Michelle Bachelet's coalition express that they do not want to carry it out, then we will discuss and analyse how pertinent it is to stay in this coalition.
Free education system within 6 years. That's the main challenge for Michelle Bachelet's coalition.
Moving to Mexico, and one way to keep the police off your back is to fake your own death, or even better, get the government to do it for you. Well, that's exactly what drug lord Nazario Moreno Gonzalez did. The head of the Knights Templar cartel was declared dead after a shootout with police back in 2010. But his luck ran out when he really was killed by police on Sunday. And this time, authorities have real and indisputed proof in the shape of his body. Now, Bill de Blasio was always going to be a big change for New Yorkers. The left-wing mayor took over from billionaire businessman Mike Bloomberg with a pledge to fight inequality in the Big Apple and make the city a fairer place. But his first 2 months in office haven't gone smoothly. He's even managed to upset those who are fond of taking horse and carriage rides around Central Park. Claire Williams has the story.
Horse-drawn carriage rides through New York City. An immensely popular pastime with tourists, but less so with newly elected mayor Bill de Blasio. Citing dangers to the horses, who come up close to cars and buses, de Blasio wants to replace the city's 68 coaches with electric replicas of vintage cars. Jobs shouldn't be lost. Carriage drivers like Christina Hansen would become chauffeurs. But she argues a New York symbol would disappear under the plans.
You know, especially people in our carriages, they're like, you can't get rid of this. This is New York. This is Central Park. this is what, you know, this is, I mean, it's like getting rid of the Statue of Liberty or the Empire State Building.
De Blasio's campaign battle revolved around reducing inequalities. He wants to raise taxes for the rich to fund pre-kindergarten for children under 6. He's also trying to persuade businesses to endorse a new city minimum wage that would be higher than the state minimum wage. But while de Blasio's plans found favour with the majority of voters last November, his election honeymoon has been somewhat short-lived. In January, he committed an offence only understood by New Yorkers, eating pizza with a knife and fork rather than with his bare hands. Then, on February 18th, de Blasio announced Vision Zero, a plan to make New York's streets safer. 2 days later, CBS journalists filmed his police-driven convoy blowing through stop signs and breaking the speed limit. Unless he's re-elected, de Blasio has 4 years to put in place his grand plans for social reforms. His term ends in 2018.
The French rail firm SNCF played a dark role in Nazi-occupied France when it transported tens of thousands of Jews to concentration camps. Well, now state senators in the United States say an apology doesn't go far enough. They want the company to pay compensation to victims' families. And if they don't, the lawmakers say they'll block a $1 billion US railway deal. Catherine Clifford has more.
70 years after the Holocaust, survivors at this hearing relived the horrors once again in a bid to convince Maryland's senators to block the SNCF from public-private contracts until US Holocaust survivors are compensated.
They put my family on those trains to their death. Maybe they couldn't have stopped it altogether, but they didn't do anything. They collaborated.
SNCF subsidiary Keolis is close to securing a $6.5 billion contract in a project that would connect Maryland's suburbs. But standing in the way, local Holocaust survivors. Furious that the company stood to profit from local taxpayers, a 92-year-old Auschwitz survivor gathered over 150,000 signatures in a petition against the SNCF. He died before the hearing, but helped pave the way for senators to propose the bill. In 2011, the SNCF apologized for transporting 76,000 people to Nazi concentration camps, but said it had been helpless under Nazi control.
SNCF, a state-owned company, was forced to be a cog in the Nazi extermination machine.
Survivors have an invoice they say proves the company actively collaborated with the Nazis, being paid per head, per kilometre, and even charging interest for late payments. The SNCF says under French law, only the government can pay such reparations. Already compensating French survivors, Paris began negotiating with Washington in February on reorganising the reparations programme to cover Americans.
And finally, workers in Brazil are working around the clock to get stadiums ready on time for the World Cup. The jewel in the crown is the Maracana Stadium in Rio de Janeiro. It was closed for 3.5 years while it underwent a major facelift, and now it's open to the public once again. But tickets are expensive, and that means there's often a lot of empty seats. Nicholas Rushworth takes a look.
A tide of red and black. The atmosphere at the Maracana Stadium in Rio de Janeiro is electric. Club-side Flamengo is playing in the Libertadores Cup this evening. The star for many fans is the stadium itself. The Maracana will be the venue of the World Cup final on the 13th of July. While the atmosphere is incredible, the stadium is not full this evening. Ticket prices have doubled since it reopened last summer. Minimum entry price €30.
It's so expensive. The price has gone up. It's hard.
That's to help pay for the partial rebuild of the stadium. Presenters for Radio Globo, meanwhile, say they miss what they had.
We loved the old Maracana so much. It had something, a history. It was part of our people's lives. People came to see this amazing place. It was phenomenal.
This is what it used to look like before it was closed for renovation in 2010. Brazil lost to Uruguay here in the final of the 1950 World Cup in the presence of 200,000 fans. The stadium's renovation means there are a lot fewer places, 78,000 seats, and lots of colour.
If you look carefully, you can see the stadium is in the colours of the national flag. The pitch is green and the seating is yellow, blue and white. There's an optical effect.
Hundreds of tourists come each day to check out the new Maracana, including the 5-star changing rooms, complete with jacuzzis. A venue for the 21st century.
I knew the old stadium, but this is really the venue for the final, between Brazil and another team. I don't know which.
Why not a revenge final against Uruguay 64 years on? Brazil has won the World Cup 5 times, but not at home. To do so would be sweet joy, and the new Maracana would be as iconic as the old.
Well, that brings us to the end of this edition of Inside the Americas. Thanks for watching, and until next time, goodbye.